Hello, and welcome to Havoc Wargaming, dedicated to bringing you the uncommon. For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Ron, and today we're going to do a box opening video of the new Italian supplement for Silver Bayonet by North Star Games. So let's get started. So I just referred to this as being by North Star Games, and it's by North Star, it's by Osprey, and it's actually written by T.C. Stephen, or Stephen, I'm going to call it Stephen. This is the pre-sale collection of items for the game with a few extra things I bought, I think. I don't remember how the old order worked. For those of you who haven't tried Silver Bayonet, I'm pretty fond of the game. It's kind of like Frostgrave, but it's set in the Napoleonic period. I like Frostgrave, don't get me wrong, but I actually enjoy this game far more. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what I received in this package. So that all being said, let's get started with the actual box opening. So the first thing that we've got here is the book. Much like the previous books, it has that sort of brown cover and looks worn. It is a softback book. It is 95 pages long. Includes the new creatures, the new factions. There's a Bourbon Naples army in here. There's the Calabrese faction. There's a few new character types that are introduced. Agent Provocateur, a member of a secret society. Calabrian clergyman. The conscripts. Some of these can be used by other armies, by the way. They're not just for the new factions. That's one of the examples. The conscripts. Light infantrymen. Lupo Minerio, Calabrian werewolves, that's only available to the Calabrese. Provincial soldiers, Voltigeurs. Talks about how to do a campaign and how to start it, how to explain characters who already exist in other campaigns, how to get them to Calabrese. So that's all very interesting. There's a description of what sort of terrain you should expect in the area. Of course, it's mostly Italian terrain. They're showing it a little bit more rural, maybe some old ancient Roman ruins still around. They're really leaning heavily on the idea of a lot of gravestones and mausoleums and more Gothic things like that. I think that has something to do with the campaign later that I'm not aware of. There's some special rules for the campaign, like the Green Mist and Necromancer activation rolls, roaming patrols. There's an unexpected events table created for the solo Calabrian campaign. I don't know much about what the idea of that is, but I may actually do a solo campaign here on the page so that'll give us a better idea of what we might see from that. Then there's the cooperative campaign, scenario initiative, and unexpected event table as well. So it divides up how to do one or the other. And there's a whole Shades of Calabria solo campaign. There's one of the new creatures too. The art, like on the other ones, is all sort of black and white. It's not multicolored. It's all drawings, not photographs. So that, I believe, is it Gollum? Is that what they call him? So there's a few scenarios that work for the campaign. There's a more difficult mode, a way to make it harder. There's, of course, the recruitment costs, which changed for that harder version. There's some additional multiplayer scenarios and that are invited to the game, so that's good. Both ways to use it. I haven't played any solo games. I'm not really sure what the solo roles entail, but again, I'll try to present some of that here. That's always an easier thing for me to do, considering I typically am here alone. There's a bestiary that introduces the new creatures, the Brigante or Brigantessa, which are the freedom fighters or patriots here in Calabresa. It's sort of like the ones you'll find in Spain. There's a chief of those, a Brigante chief. Grave Golem, that's what that thing was that I showed you the picture of earlier. A Negromonte, which is a figure of a shadow cloaked in black. Necromancer Acolyte. Necromancy seems to be a part of this. Nightmare Witch La Janata. A possessed boar. I bought a boar. I don't think I have him with me. I bought that on a separate order, but I do have the possessed boar. The Spectral Soldiers and Skeletal Soldiers. I look forward to showing you those. There's a couple of new attributes. Curse of the Evil Eye, Brittle Dark Gift, Ethereal Firearm. These weapons don't use physical ammunition, don't have to be reloaded, can only be fired once per activation, do not require reloading. I'm looking to see if they hit ghosts or something, which I'm not seeing. light infantry training, quick to run, paralyzed, raise the dead, that no doubt goes with the necromancers, rusted weapons, that is for the skeletal soldiers. So all looks very interesting. I'm looking forward to trying this. I've become somewhat Italian interested in the last few years, and I have a lot of Italian terrain anyway, so this is just another way to use it. What with the stuff from Force of Virtue, I'm putting together a World War II gaming equipment and tables for Italy. There's a lot of carryover between Mediterranean things anyway, and I've been doing Spain for a while, so it's a natural, I think, lap over. Now let's for the more interesting thing. Let's see what we can get to with these. The first thing I'm going to present is this. This is the Calabrese unit of Calabrese Italians. These look like they may be a little easier to run than some of the older ones were because they, I think, based on having played the game a little bit and by what normally comes in these boxes, that they are providing you commonly with hard to find figures that are more specific to the game in the boxes. So often, right out of the box, this group is way too powerful or too expensive point-wise to run as a beginning game. They don't tend to give you enough of the basic soldiers, and instead they give you the more game-specific figures, and I imagine that's because they figure you probably already have characters. I think this may have leaned in both of these boxes I'm about to show you to more beginning levels, probably because they went with Napoleon and Calabrese, and that's not a really huge area for wargaming Napoleonic Wars. I haven't opened this yet at all. You may have noticed the box was already open. I'm cheating with my box opening, but I don't believe I've actually opened these. Yeah, it's still taped closed. So the Calabrese unit consists of a handful of figures. There is a officer, a champion of the faith, a highwayman, an occultist, a clergyman, a lupo monaro, and 2 irregulars. So let's see what we find in here, and I'll try to properly identify them for you. They do these strange things with these figures, so I apologize for that. They have these strange sprues typically on the ends of their muskets. So this is a little disfiguring. This looks like an apple with a point coming out. Those will have to be clipped off. But this is an irregular soldier for the Calabrese. This is the Lupo Monaro. He in human form. I suspect that I need a werewolf figure for him. I have one around for when he changes shape, but this is the human form of the werewolf, the Calabrese werewolf. This is the occultist. I like the look of this figure and their hair blowing in the wind. This is the highwayman. Dastardly looking, nice figure. Obviously the Calabrese clergyman there, carrying a stick. This one threw me for a little bit. This is the irregular, another irregular, the second one. So there's 2 irregulars in here. So these really tall hats and muskets. When he's not painted, this officer looks very gentlemanly. This would be useful for a lot of other games, I think. He's basically just in a tailcoat. I mean, it's going to be painted to be a military jacket, but that's the officer figure. Looks really nice. I like him. And lastly, the one I called the Calabrese monk or clergyman is actually a champion of the faith. In fact, she's supposed to be a nun. This is the clergyman in the normal monk outfit. Don't know what the difference is right now, but I suspect the other one is superior to this one. Yeah, I like these figures. I hadn't really intended to get new factions. I already own Prussians, French, English. In fact, I own, in many of these cases, both boxes, the new and the first and second boxes. And I have the Spanish. Most of my Spanish aren't the official characters. The Spanish was the easy faction for me to do because there's so many automatic figures. I have the Brigade Games Paul Hicks figures for Spain for doing the brigands and revolutionaries, the irregular soldiers of that war, and they just naturally fit right into the Silver Bayonet army, not for this game, not for this one. Okay, so this is the other boxed set for the new faction. These are the Napoleon, in this case specifically the Bourbon, Kingdom of Bourbon. So these are the loyalists, as it were, still remained loyal to the original King of Naples at the beginning of the war, rather than being allied with the Emperor's brother. What comes in this box, there's going to be an officer, an agent provocateur, a light infantryman, a provincial soldier, a conscript, a grenadier, a sapper, and an irregular. So you can see again, they've got a handful more just basic figures in these two new packages. That was a problem for my game club, for the people who don't already wargame this period, is they were a little light on infantry and regular soldiers. And as I mentioned earlier, you sort of need them for the beginning armies. Maybe as you play in campaign, you can use more of the bigger guys, the more impressive guys, but not in the beginning. So this first one is a light infantry and a stocking cap. You'll again see what I said earlier. He's got one of those sprues on the end of his gun. Oh, sapper. This is the sapper. I think that's a new figure. This is an irregular. Looks a whole lot like the irregular on the other side. I suspect that I could actually make these do double service if I... Uh-oh. One of them has a hand that has to be glued on. That this is the conscript. I think this is supposed to be the conscript. I'm confused because his coat, I thought he was a cavalryman. But I think that's actually supposed to be the conscript. His coat looks like a dolman, so I was sort of surprised about that. It doesn't in the painting. This is the grenadier. Yes. Some of these figures look a lot alike on the back of this box when they're unpainted. That's the grenadier, the Napoleon grenadier. I don't know anything about Napoleon uniforms, but some of these seem very backwards to me. And this guy's helmet looks like a cavalry helmet, but he is a provincial soldier. Might have to find myself an Osprey guide to Napoleons. This is the officer in his bicorn. Interestingly armed with a musket. I think that may be unusual in the game. I can't remember offhand anybody else having a musketed officer, but there you have it. I bet the Canadian ones might. That wouldn't surprise me. And then this is the agent provocateur, a Jacobin or Mason or some member of some sort of secret society. Maybe it's just freedom to Napoleon. Those are the two new factions. It's not like the Egypt book where there's the old factions have been revised to fit the location. I don't think there was, I don't recall there was anything like that. I don't know. I mean, I don't believe that I bought everything that was available. Or maybe I did. I mean, I was very excited about the idea of bringing the game into Spain. So those were the box sets of figures, but there's a bunch of separate ones. And this is where I think I didn't get everything, but I can't quite recall. I got a bit, and I'm going to be at a loss probably at describing what some of them are. Like these definitely look like they're cultists, or perhaps they're those Calabrese witches or something. They both are necromancers. They don't look particularly dark like I would expect a necromancer, but they're clearly holding staffs, very fantasy looking figures. All of these things we're looking at now are going to be the various creatures or enemies that you run into outside of, you know, the other side's forces. These are, I think these are the spectral soldiers. These are going to be fun. They're ghosts, and they have sort of like wavy, I don't know what to call that. There's mists or ectoplasm or something that's coming off of them, which painted a good ghostly color. These are going to, I think, just really look good. I think these were a really creative idea, and this is the stuff that I wish there was more of, and I'm glad to see them getting to, is the fantasy things that are specifically made for the game. You can make up a lot of what you need by using generic fantasy horror things, but what really makes the game pop, in my opinion, is when they're wearing the proper, you know, clothing of the early 19th century, or they're wearing Napoleonic uniforms, and it really helps the game feel real and feel more like what it's trying to do. These are brigands, I believe. All of these look like they're basically in civilian clothing. There's two women and the rest are men, and they're armed with muskets. So those are probably the brigantes, or I can't remember the name for the female ones. They had a specific name. I noticed that was on the patrol list, for instance. That's something you can easily run into in the investigation of the game. Not everything is mystical that are your villains. I hope there's enough of these for the game. I don't know what numbers these things show up, and these are clearly the skeletal soldiers. These are fun. I like these a lot. I saw them earlier there. I don't know if you can make it out on the detail here. I'll see how close I can get them and hopefully get them in focus. But they're skeletal, wearing uniforms, Napoleonic uniforms. I don't know if they're specific to a particular nation yet. I'll try to figure that out when it comes time to paint them so I can paint them properly. Ooh, I have no idea what this is, but I like it. Oh, this is probably that, the black spirit thing that I read off, because there's no face in there. I don't see any actual human. It's just obviously supposed to be somewhat spectral. That is a cool figure. That is really nice. I mean, that would be fun to use for other things, like a wraith or something. That is a really nice figure. Okay, this is obviously the Grave Golem. A little smaller in 28mm than he was in the art. But when I say that, he is not small. He is made up of various grave things. So he's got a skull head, and he's wearing a shako, the same army that the other shakos, skeletals guys were wearing. It's got the same sort of badge up on the top there. But he's got a coffin on his back, a number of gravestones made up like you might expect of a golem, obviously of things available to him in the graveyard. Now, this is interesting. I don't know if these were add-ons or if I ordered these and they were part of the game. They're two Norman soldiers. There may be something that I'm missing in our part of the game. I haven't read the books. I'm not familiar with all the creatures that come up, but these are basically two just. Oh no, I think they're skeletal. Yeah, they are. Their hands don't look all that skeletal, but their faces are skulls, so they clearly are one of the creatures in the game. And there's another one of these ladies. I think that's the same figure as the other one I had. Or I don't know if that was an error, or sometimes when you buy these things they give you special gifts. Maybe it was that. I just don't recall. Anyway, this is the items that came with Silver Bayonet Italy. I look forward to getting those painted and getting them here on the table, and maybe we'll play some of the solo campaign for you and see how that goes. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you do, I hope you'll hit like. Also, if you have further ideas for other content we might produce here on Cry Havoc Wargaming, we look at the comment section for that as well. I haven't mentioned it before, but I do have a Buy Me a Coffee account if you're interested in supporting the channel that way. I'll provide a link for that down here. If you've enjoyed the video and found it useful, I hope you'll hit like and subscribe and ring our notification bell. Until next time, cheers.